I'm joining you all from Singapore today. It's like 11 p.m. already here, but this is something which I enjoy doing. So happy to be here, no matter the time or no matter the time zone, right? So today I want to speak about what is that you can do using the quiz forms, or the new name, which is called as Snap-on forms. I'm going to start off by showing you how to build a smart form in SharePoint, basically which sits on top of a SharePoint list. Then we'll be talking about how to, automate data capture, how you can play around creating some conditional logic and streaming approvals, and also how to enhance productivity. Sarah, can you hear me well? I'm getting a notification saying that
Yes,
somebody's
I can hear you. Yes, I see
okay.
Vanessa says no sound. Can everyone else hear us, Vignesh and me? Could you please type? Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you,
Perfect.
David. Yes, Vanessa, if you could check your settings, please.
All right. So let's get started. And before I move further, a quick show of hands. Can everybody see my screen? Is it visible to you? You should be seeing a SharePoint slide. Is it visible to everybody? Perfect. All right. So I'm just going to give you a lay of the land of what exactly I built here, and then I'm going to build everything from scratch, right? So that you understand how easy it is for someone, to go ahead and play around with the quiz forms tool. You don't really need to be a SharePoint developer, somebody who has extensive SharePoint skills. You could be just a normal end user to SharePoint and still get your job done using quiz apps. I believe that's the beauty about quiz apps. So let's jump right in. All right, so I'm just going to show you a demo of what exactly I've done, and then I'll build things from scratch. So what you're seeing here is a normal SharePoint list, and I'm trying to use this as a purchase request list. So typically in organizations, you would see this sort of a scenario, right? Wherein you purchase something, then you go to a site which is built in-house in your organization. There are different tools and products which offer this, and then you sort of put in the details, you put in the invoice, you mention your department, and then you put in the manager, then a workflow gets triggered to your manager, and then the approval happens, right? So that's what basically I'm trying to do here. Let's begin off by clicking this first. I'm going to click on new, and I'm basically trying to give in a new detail. I'm sorry, this is the managers. And even before I move further, let me sort of introduce the two personas who I'm going to play around with today. So the first persona will be me, myself, Vignesh. So I'm going to be playing the role of the requester. And then I have Martin Scorsese. Everybody is familiar with that name. He's a favorite American filmmaker, my favorite. So I like keeping some of my famous personalities as my test users. So that's the rationale behind the name. So Martin would be playing the role of a manager, and Vignesh would be playing the role of a requester, right? So here I am logged in as Vignesh. I'm going to click on new. And by default, I will configure it to pick in the logged in users details in the requesters field. I'm going to choose my department. Let's say I belong to finance. I'm going to mention my manager here. And then the requested date, it automatically chooses the date, the today's date. The request title, I'm going to say this as new hire device, right? Something like that. And then in the purchase details, I'm going to mention which category it belongs to. So let's say I purchased a new device. Maybe I'm going to call this as iPhone, let's say 15, something like that. The cost, let's put it as, let's say, $1,500 US. Quantity is going to be 1. The justification is I'm going to give it as new hire, right? Just a very simple thing. And I'm going to save this. So once I save this should trigger a workflow notification, email notification to Martin, who's playing the role of a manager here, right? So let's see how things look like on Martin's end. Just going to give it a refresh. Just give it a couple of seconds. Yeah, so you saw that come through, and you see all the details. You see that it's an iPhone. This is what it costs, the department, so on and so forth. And you can click on here to view the item. Then the form loads. And right from here, Martin can choose either to approve or reject. So in this case, I'm going to click on approve. And once it is approved, the requester, who is Vignesh, should be getting a notification saying that, hey, your boss has reviewed it and he has approved it. Let's see what is the view of Vignesh here. So Vignesh also gets a notification saying that, hey, your purchase request has been reviewed by your manager. Below are the details of the approval decision. It basically talks about, what are the things which I mentioned, and it says approved. If the manager wants to put in a comment, that can also be possible, but in this case, he just chose to approve. And then he can see all the details here. He clicks on view item. It'll basically take him back to that very item that he just submitted, and he can see what exactly was done there, right? And even if I get back to the SharePoint list, you can see this here, and it also changes the status to approved, because before that it was set to pending, and now it is set to approved, right? Now this is a basic, very simple thing. Uh, but if you're trying to do this just with normal SharePoint related stuff, or maybe using Power Automate stuff, you really need to, spend some time trying to tweak around things, and it's really going to take some time. You really need to have a decent amount of SharePoint skills to, get your way around building something like this. But I'll show you how easy it is using Quiz Apps. For that, I have a SharePoint list here, which I built for this webinar. And I'm exactly mimicking whatever you see here, right? So all the columns as it is. So in fact, let me just quickly show you all the different columns I've created for this scenario here. If I go to the list settings, these are the bunch of columns which I've created, like the request title, request, and I'm choosing the appropriate type. This is something very simple. As long as you've been playing around with SharePoint list, this is something bad minimum, right? So these are the different columns which I've created. And as of now, if I just click on new, this is just going to render me the normal SharePoint list view, right? Now let's see what is it we can do using the quiz apps. I'm going to click on quiz apps. And I'm going to play around with a bunch of apps today, which belongs to the quiz forms module. Uh, I want to start off by playing around with Form Builder. As the name itself says, this is going to help you to sort of customize and build a form, right? On top, which sits on top of the SharePoint list. Let me click on Form Builder for that. And you can create different tabs here. This is your way of sort of customizing the form and putting the columns into the respective form so that the user sees a nice view when he's trying to submit his details, right? So I'm going to click on new tab. I'm going to call this as requester details. So basically, this is the very first tab wherein you're capturing the requester's information. And I'm basically trying to add in all the relevant roles which are specific to the requester, right? You can see something like this, and if at all you want to create two columns, you can sort of expand like this, right? Or if at all you're comfortable with just one row, whatever works for you, right? So the very first information which I'm going to put in here is, let's capture the requester column. And then I want to go ahead and capture, let's say, the department column, and then the manager column. These are all the columns which are from the SharePoint list, right? And then I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to create two more things here, and I want to capture the requested date maybe, and then the title, right? And the best part is you can just preview the form. Just by this one click, you can see how this is exactly going to render on the SharePoint list once this form is published, right? So I have one thing created for requester. Now let me create one more tab. And maybe here I want to capture all the details related to the purchase which the requester has made, right? I'm going to call this as purchase details. So here maybe I can capture information such as category, like for instance, what category, whether it's a device or whether it's a software which the person has purchased, and then the item name, right? And then I'm going to add more row, and this time maybe the total cost. Let's give it like this. The unit cost first, and then the quantity, right? And I'm going to bring in the total cost column and then make the justification, right? If at all you want to capture the justification, all right? And this doesn't have to necessarily be the same way in your organization. Whatever columns you want to capture, you can go ahead and put in those, capture only those columns, right? And you can also preview the form. It's going to show you how exactly it's going to look like. And finally, the approval tab, right? Approvals. And for approvals, I'm going to split this. Maybe who should be the one? First, we want to capture the approval status, like what exactly is the status of the approval, and then maybe the manager's comments, right? And when I click on the preview form, you see it like this. So you see a lot of information here. So the requested details, and this is how the form is looking like. The purchase details, this is what it is, and the approvals, right? And yeah, so let me go ahead and apply this and save it. And let's see how this shows up in the SharePoint list now. When I click on new, so now you can just see all the three different tabs which I created. The first one shows all the requested details, then the purchase details, and then the approvals, right? And now if you notice, a normal requester shouldn't be seeing the approval tab, right? The approval tab should only be showing up for the manager, not for the requester, right? So how do I configure such logic, such sort of conditions, right? For this, let me go back to the form builder option once again. Here I am. And I go to approvals and I want to put in a condition here, right? You see an option here called as condition just for this approval tab, right? I'm going to say when the user's action, right, is equal to, let's say, view item. And just think about for a minute, right? The user who has put in a request, he should be able to see the status of his approval. He should know whether it has been approved or rejected, but he shouldn't be the one who can go ahead and sort of take it. He only wants to see this, what's the status of the item that he has submitted. So I'm just going to say show this only when the user's action is view item, right? Then I'm going to click on apply. And then I also want to configure one more condition wherein rather than the requester trying to put in his details, every time the requester logs into that list, it should automatically recognize who's the person who logged in and automatically pick his details, right? For this, I can set the default value. I'll show you how to set this. I can create a new rule and you see this tokens here and you can just, I'm going to say me. So what this does is it chooses, it tries to understand who is the logged in user, and by default, it captures the logged in user's information in the requester column so that the logged in user doesn't necessarily has to go in and put in his name. You could do that for the manager column also. You could say that, hey, try to look for the user's manager property and try to pull in all those things are possible, but I'm just trying to keep it simple here. Let me do this. Right, so now if I go back and see what this has done to the list, click on the form. All right, now you can see that the approvals tab is not showing up anymore because it should be noticed only when the item is on view state, right? And then you can also notice that it automatically picked the requester, the logged in user as the requester. Now there are a few other things which I want to show you. Now we have just customized the form, right? The next thing which I want to show you is column permissions, right? Because SharePoint is known for its unique permissions. You can even sort of tweak the permissions even to one cell level, right? So column permissions is also an app which belongs to the quiz forms module. And as the name itself says, you can sort of dynamically hide or disable the columns in the list, right? Based on certain conditions, you can choose whether a certain or a certain column shouldn't show up. For this, let me click on column permissions. And I'm going to choose one column, maybe the requester. And I want to put in a rule here, right? And the rule is I want to sort of disable the requester column when I'm going to say that, I want to disable maybe, let's say, the edit form. Maybe I want to disable the edit form. And the condition is maybe when the user action is equal to view item. Okay. So just there are different ways you could configure this, right? Now, let's say if this is a list which is visible to a lot of people, right? And then you do not want somebody who's not the person who has submitted that request to go ahead and edit it, right? If that's what you want to do, then you can start creating such column permissions. And also if the manager, right, even if the manager will also be having edit permissions on the list. So how do you make sure that only the requester has the access to edit the request that he has made, and it is nobody else who can go ahead and edit it, right? So then you can start creating such permissions. This is one such permission which I created. I'm going to click on save. And you could do this for all the columns, right? Because basically you do not want all the columns to be editable for everyone except for the requester. So this is one such thing which I've created, and you can continue doing this for all the other columns, which makes sense from a requester standpoint, right? Maybe request title, request date, total cost, unit cost. There are a whole bunch of columns that you can just set it as. It should be only the requester who should be able to edit it, and others shouldn't be able to edit it, right? I'm not going to do this for all the columns, just so you know that this is also possible, and you can do this using column permissions, right? So we spoke about form builder, then I showed you how to create permissions for specific columns. Now let's talk about activities, which is one of my favorite thing when it comes to the quiz forms module. The way I want you to look about activities is when you look at a workflow is nothing but it is something which connects multiple activities together, right? Send email is an activity, right? Update a certain item is an activity, or delete a certain item, or update the status of a column, right? These are all different activities, and a workflow is something which sort of connects all these things together so that you say that, hey, when this happens, go ahead and do all these steps, right? So I'm going to create all these different activities now, and then I'm going to show you how you can make use of the workflow app that's part of the quiz forms module, and how you can connect all these different activities together, right? So the very first activity which I want to do is I want to create an activity which sends an email to the user's manager when a new item has been added to the list, right? For this, the activity which I'm going to choose is email. These are all the different activities which are inbuilt inside the forms module. So I'm going to click on email. I'm going to call this as send email to manager when new item is created. So I'm going to call it, now the properties, pretty straightforward. Think about this. So who should be the recipient? The recipient should obviously be the manager, and you click on this, it will show you something like this, right? I'm going to click on the list column, which is meant for manager, so that automatically it understands who's the person who is mentioned in the manager column, and it sends the mail every time a new item is submitted. So the recipient would be the manager. The from address should be the requester because it should go from his inbox, right? I'm going to call it as requester, and if at all you want to put the display name, from display name, I'm going to put it as the requester. And in your organization, if at all you have to CC somebody, or if you want to keep somebody in BCC, it depends from case to case. So whatever you want, even those are also possible, right? So give it a proper subject line. I'm going to call this as new item submitted for approval. And then here comes the mail body, right? So what is the body that you want to give here? I have just kept a copy of what exactly I want to give here, but in your organization, you can choose how exactly you want to draft the email body, right? And I'm gonna show you how this is done. So you can say hello, and then you can insert a token, right? The token is the manager column. So whomever is the manager, the specific name will come here. A new purchase request has been submitted by the requester. Choose this, and I'm going to put the requester's name here. Product, just choose the appropriate column name here. List column, so the product maps to item name. The total cost maps to total cost. The department maps to department. The requested date maps to requested date. And please click on the link below to review the review and take action, right? For this, I want to put in the items URL, right? For this, the specific token is you can choose items URL, and maybe you want to put in the view item, right? And if you want to make this as a hyperlink, choose to this. I'm going to make this as a hyperlink. Just trying to give it a cleanup using the HTML. I just want to get rid of, right? And then done. So we have created our very first activity. I'm going to click on save. So the very first activity is we want to make sure that an email gets triggered. So this is the first activity, right? Now the next thing which I want to do is create one more activity. This time I want an email to be triggered after the manager makes a decision, whether the manager chooses to approve or reject. The requester should get notified, right? So let's create one more activity for that. I'm going to call this again email. So this time notify requester on approval decision. So the properties, once again, so this time the recipient should be the requester. The from should be the manager because it has to go from the manager's box. Display name once again should be the manager, and the subject should be your purchase record. And this is completely based upon how you, I'm just doing it about what makes sense to me, and you can feel free to tweak it the way you want to do it, right? So maybe I'm going to say this as, hey, your purchase request, and then I'm going to give it a name as, let's say, request title, and then whatever the approval status is in this column, right? If it is approved, it's going to show as approved. If it is rejected, it's going to show as rejected, right? And then I'm going to copy and paste the body. So hello requester, it's going to say, hey, the person who has submitted, and you can just go ahead and choose this. Your purchase request has been reviewed by your manager, and below other details, and just as we did for the previous activity, just map the appropriate columns. Request title is going to be request title. Category is going to be category. Quantity is going to be quantity. Unit cost is going to be unit cost. Total cost is going to be total cost. Requested date maps to requested date. And then approval status maps to approval status. Manager comments maps to manager comments. You can review your full request here, and here I want to give the item URL, view item, and once again, sort of make this as a hyperlink that you can click and it directly takes you to the item. And let me give it a clean up on this HTTP and save. I really like the tokens here because you can just, it automates. So the token is gonna sort of look at what exactly is filled in that list column and sort of capture that on the mail body. When you're seeing, when I'm showing the, real approval, you'll see how exactly it captures all the information there. And the next new activity. So we created the two email activities. One is when a new item is created, the manager gets notified, and the manager's decision gets, notified back to the requester. But that's just not enough. There are a few more things that we need to create. The next thing is we want to create an update status, right? So this is something called as update item. So how can I update an item? Let's say in SharePoint, you want to, on the SharePoint list, you want to update a particular column, right? How do I go about it, right? For this, I'm going to call this as update status. And what do I want to approve? I want to update the current item. And what is that current item? It's the approval status, right? And you can make use of the token here. And it says here, you can just, this is how you would go ahead and put in the variable. So here I'm just going to put in whatever is the value on the status column, just go ahead and update it there, right? And this is how it comes up. So current item, approval status, and I'm just going to say save. Then I want to create two more activities. So the other thing which I want to create is, let's say, update item, and this time approved. So when the manager chooses approve as a action item, what should happen? The first thing that it should do is it should update the status of the current item. The approval status should be changed to approved, right? I think that's what basically it should do, right? When the status has been made as approved, we want the respective column also to reflect as approved. Let's click on apply. And then same for rejected also. So every time a thing gets rejected, I'm going to call this as update item. Rejected properties. I'm going to set the current item and I feel the approval status is equal to rejected. So every time it's rejected, I want the column also to show like this, apply. Okay, so now we are done building all the different activities. Now let's go back and try to build a workflow which sort of connects all these activities. Only then it's a full demo, right? So I'll go back now. Just want to make sure that the form builder is all fine here. Perfect. The column permissions. Perfect. I see all the 5 activities which I've created. Perfect. And then I'm going to go to the workflows, which is basically trying to connect all these different pieces together, right? So the first workflow which I want to create, it's automatic action. And in this thing, what I want to do is I want to send an email when item is added. And I'm going to choose, since it's an automatic action, every time item is added, I'm going to choose this. And the activities which I've created that, I can go ahead and choose this activity here, right? So every time a new item is added, I'm going to say send email to a manager. I'm choosing the activity which we were just creating a few minutes back, right? And then you can also go ahead and create a condition, like what should be your condition for this, right? I'm going to say the condition should be when the approval status is equal to pending. I mean, think about it, right? So when a requester is sort of submitting his information, the details, at that very point in time, it's pending, right? And this should only run when it is pending, not when it's when the column has been either approved or rejected. So this is cautiously me trying to say that hey, only under this condition should this thing get triggered, or else just don't go ahead and trigger it. And then I want to create one more workflow. So this time I'm going to call it as a user action. Every time when I say user action, every time when this is performed, when a certain activity is performed by that user, right? So let's give it a name. I'm trying to create a button. So this time I'm going to call this as approve. The name is called as approve. I'm going to select a button icon, save activities. So what should be the activity for this? So basically, maybe update status. No, I don't think so. Maybe update the current item. I want to update the status because when somebody is trying to click, when the manager is trying to click on approve one, it should of course update the status of whatever it is. If he chooses approve, it should be reflecting as approved. If he chooses reject, it should be reflecting as reject, right? The next thing which I want to do is I also want an email to be triggered to the requester on the approval decision. So these are the two things. When the manager clicks on the approve button, it should reflect the following status. It should reflect it as approved, and then it should also trigger an email to the requester. And should there be a condition for this? Yes. The condition is this should be only performed by the manager, right? So when the manager is equal to me. So only when the manager is logged in should he be able to do all this. So these are all the different sort of conditions, granular conditions that you can set in quest forms. Similar way, I'll create something for reject also. Again, it's a user action. I'm going to call this as reject. The button which I'm going to choose is, we'll give it an appropriate button, something like a cross mark. Activities, I'm going to choose. The activity is, of course, I wanted to update the status. Yeah, and the activity should be that it should notify. I think for this, the action type is this, the button caption is reject, the name is reject, update the current item, and then, yeah, so update the current item, set whatever comes in there, and then just click on save. Okay. Just a quick check. So send email when a new item is added, activities, it should send an email to the manager, and the condition which I want to set it is when the approval status is equal to pending, makes sense. And then when the user chooses to approve, I want this. And then when the activity should be, I wanted to update the status, whatever status the user, the manager has chosen, update the current item. And I also wanted to send a mail to this, let's update the current item, which is good. Condition, which only the manager who should do it. All right, so let's see what exactly this does. So here we are. I'm going to submit a new request now. It automatically chooses the logged in user, the department is IT. I'm going to choose Martin's Scorsese. The request title is, let's say, replacement device, something like that. Purchase details, or maybe the device, let's call this as a MacBook Pro. Unit cost, I'm going to give it as like $2,500. Quantity V1, justification. Again, it's a replacement device, and feel free to put in whatever details makes sense here. When you click on save, so right now the status is pending. This should trigger a mail to the manager, who is Martin. Let's check. Give it a few seconds. There we go, it comes through. You can see all this here. I've just made it as a hyperlink. If at all you want to make it like a button, you can also do that. Click on this. And now you can just go ahead and click on approve and it'll do its job. But I want you to pay attention to this edit also. Now, despite Martin being the manager, he's able to edit this complete item. So this is where your column permission comes in handy, because if you remember in the demo, I just made the requester column alone as something which nobody else can edit other than the requester. So if you do that for all the other columns, then literally the manager himself, despite having edit permissions to the list, he won't be able to edit all the columns, right? So now let me just go ahead and click on approve. Approved, and Vignesh should have received an email. Yeah, so here the approval status. So this is what I was thinking. And the reason why you're seeing this is because I haven't updated the status properly. Because if you go back to this very thing, and that's a minor error, I'll just show you where exactly you need to tweak it. Quiz apps. Activities. This is one minor thing which I missed. Then this is all good. This is all good. Rejected. Let me quickly look at the workflow, which is sort of connecting this. Approve. Yeah, so here you see this because it's just the token. I haven't really mentioned what should be captured inside the token, which is why you're seeing that as just status. It doesn't really have anything mentioned. So for approved, I'm going to give this as approved when the manager approves, right? Quick, perfect. Save. And for reject, I hope it's the same thing here. Yeah, I'm going to call this as rejected. Save. Perfect. Now let me give it one more try. Hope this time it captures properly. Now let me choose this. Scorsese. Just give it as new hire. The purchase details, I'm just going to give it as a device, maybe Dell laptop. Unit cost. Put this as $1,000. T1 justification. Hire device. Let me submit it this time. A requester does it. Let's see what it looks like from the manager standpoint. Yeah, came through. Click on this. And I'm going to approve it. Okay, it's approved. And let's see what is, sorry. Let's see what is the view of Vignesh. He gets an email. Yeah, and this time, as you can see, it captured it properly. So that was a small minor thing which I missed. And he can also go back here, and now he can also check the status. It automatically captured it. So that's basically how easy it is to just go ahead and build. And I've used my own way of doing it, but if you've closely followed what I've been doing, you could realize that you could do it by your own way. You don't really have to use the column the way I created. There are different tweaks that you can do. But the idea is to make sure that you understand how easy it is to use the quiz apps forms module and build a simple workflow, which just would have taken about an hour and you're done with the workflow, right? So that's all I have for this session now. And if at all you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. Happy to take your questions.